The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
And welcome to the November 8th edition of The Opinionators. I am Larry Diani, and The Opinionators is Cable 14's premier political affairs program with an expert panel and their opinions. And let's meet them right now. Representing the liberal perspective is Ron Corsini. How are you, Ron?
Larry, great to be here.
And to his right, of course, is Tara Crugnale, representing the progressive conservative perspective. Hi, Tara.
Hi there, Larry.
And all the way to the other side, politically as well as in the room, is, of course, Alex Johnstone, representing the NDP. How are you, Alex?
Hello, Larry.
Well, listen, we've got a full slate, so we're going to get right down to it. And we're going to start with you, Tara. And it has to do with the election down south. I think all Canadians watched it. President Obama is back in. The Congress is divided, with the Senate being Republican and the Senate being Democrat, the House being Republican, but also some interesting propositions around gay marriage and marijuana. How do you think this will affect Canada, all of that stuff?
Well, it really goes to show that many Canadians were hoping for an Obama win, and they got an Obama win. I don't think Mitt Romney ever really had a chance at the White House. I know that we're all saying it was a nail-biter, but when it came down to it, the social conservatism isn't working in the States anymore. And we see that with many of those propositions that got yes votes, gay marriage, legalization of marijuana. We're not even at that point yet in Canada. So it goes to show that Republicans are really going to have to change the way that they present their value system to the American people, to a very diverse population nowadays. But what it means for Canada, it's going to mean a lot of the same. Obama doesn't like our oil sands, so we're looking elsewhere to go with that. Obama is looking inwards, and there's a lot of protectionism going on in the United States. So that doesn't help us out at all. And truly, if he can't get anything done in the next little while, the Americans are going to find themselves in another recession, and that is going to hit us hard.
Well, Alex, you've got to be pleased that Obama won, and maybe even pleased that some of the other social policies seem to be taking root there. Mm-hmm. How do you think the dynamics of the election will influence what happens in Canada?
Well, Larry, I want to pick up on some of the items that Tara had spoke about. Certainly in the United States, I believe that this was much a vote against Romney as it was Obama. People were certainly frustrated with the fact that their economy has been tanking since 2008 with the recession. At the same time, this was a vote against Romney for stalling so many bills. And as Tara had mentioned, that if Obama doesn't get anything done, that will be bad for Canada. Who is at fault had been the Republicans for the last 4 years in terms of stalling legislation. Obama had reached out his hand many times, and in the next 4 years, I hope that he doesn't waste as much time trying to work with the Republicans, because they certainly wouldn't try to work with them if it was the reverse. I do want to mention one quick thing. You talked about votes on pot, on gay marriage. It's also important to note that they elected historic records of women. So Romney didn't have to look for those binders of women. They were all across the states, and I'm very excited about that. 1 in 5 women were elected on Tuesday night.
And Ron, of course, for the Liberal Party, it's also good news, because I think the moderate middle is what won in the United States on so many issues. How do you feel it's going to influence us?
Well, we've always had a great relationship with the U.S. Trade-wise, they're our biggest trading partners. But this economy the sluggish economy that we're going through, and the States is going through, we're tied into it. The U.S. coughs and we get a cold. It's the whole thing that we're so tied so closely to each other that way. I mean, obviously, they have different values of way of doing things, and those things will come to pass too. I mean, you talk about gay marriage. Canada was first to legalize gay marriage before the states did, and I think our marijuana laws are a lot more lax than theirs. But having said that, we are going to, the next little while, with this fiscal cliff that seems to be talked about a lot, and the money is going to have to come from somewhere to lift up. I mean, you can't just keep on spending money to create jobs.
Well,
and
it's interesting that you say that, because actually in California, one of the votes that went through was the population there is going to be taxing the wealthy and bringing in $6 billion, and that's going to be going towards their education.
Well, but that's
fine.
something.
Let me frame it for you, Tara, and I want your opinion on this, because as I mentioned earlier, I think the moderate middle really won out. I think Mr. Romney preached debt and deficit, as did his party, and Obama said fairness in terms of taxation. Those at the top need to be taxed more, and preserving social programs. Is there a lesson for Mr. Hudak, for example,
Absolutely not, Larry. That's comparing apples to oranges. I would suggest that in the States, there is absolutely nothing like the NDP, and even the Liberals. Canadian Liberals are a little bit far left in the Democratic Party. Absolutely.
But,
we don't have in Canada. We don't have anything like that Republican Party. I mean,
What
you
about
have
the
them
message?
having to.
How about the message?
The message. I think that the fiscal message was the right message in terms of.
But it didn't sell.
No, it wasn't. But it wasn't that part that didn't sell. It was the comments like "binders full of women" and "I enjoy sport," and the notion that you could juggle quotes from either Mr. Burns from The Simpsons and Mitt Romney, and you couldn't tell which one was which. I mean, that was the issue with the Republican candidate.
Mitt really reframed himself over the election. He went from being this hardcore conservative Tea Party enthusiast to in the end, it was moderate Mitt. And I think that
but nobody believed
Canada,
nobody believed it when you had the whole thing about the 47% will never vote for us. Yeah, sure, it could be true, but you never say it out loud. Yeah. When it comes to the fact that he had to pander to that Tea Party just to get the nomination, people didn't forget that. They didn't forget that at all.
Obama inherited this fiscal problem in the States, and in 4 years, you're not going to be able to fix this mess that is, and it's worldwide. It's not only in the U.S. I mean, I think Canada's far better off than the Americans.
Majority of that debt came from the Bush administration.
That's right.
And I think that Harper and other conservatives such as Hudak should be paying attention to what just went on in the South.
I'm looking towards
this
2016. I'm looking at Clinton versus Christie for 2016.
All right. Well, we're going to drop it there because we've got some other topics to talk about, and we're going to come back to the marijuana issue when I get my turn as well. So we'll chat about that. Ron, this one's for you, and we're going to talk provincially, because as we know, there's a leadership contest provincially. Up until today, there were only two candidates, Kathleen Wynne and Glenn Murray. As of today, Sandra Pupatello has announced, and Charles Sousa apparently will announce tomorrow. So there are 4 candidates. Is that rather a slow pace? Why aren't more jumping in? What's that say?
I don't blame them. I mean, this is something that's a huge decision for themselves and their families, and what they're having to go through. The $50,000 registration fee up front is probably one obstacle for them trying to raise money. And to raise a campaign of this magnitude, you're going to need the cash to get your message across. Sandra Pupatello, I am extremely happy that she entered the race. She does not wear any of the issues that so many people have talked about lately, and comes in with a clean slate. You know what? She is really going to give Hudak and Andrea the run for their money.
If she wins. What do you think, Tara?
Well, up until today, I didn't know what was going on with only 2 candidates in the race. It's like a race to the bottom for the Liberal Party. I do think that Sandra Pupatello is their only choice, really, and hope, and it's mirroring the federal race, where really who's the only guy that everyone's talking about? It's Trudeau. So Pupatello is going to be the only one that people are talking about here. So is it really going to be a race at all? It's just going to be a lot of $50,000 costs to get in, and what is it going to be? I don't think it's going to be that interesting. I think that Sandra's just going to get it, and if she gets it, perhaps she can, keep the Liberal Party afloat at least for another, 4 or 5 months, because I don't think that they can go into an election before late spring.
All right, and what do you make of it all? Do you care?
Oh, absolutely, I care. I think that, I wouldn't discount Kathleen Wynne, I will say that. I think that the Liberals need Kathleen Wynne in order to bring the teachers back on board. And I think that the teachers in the public sector will play a very important role in terms of how this leadership race rolls out. I don't know that Sandra has what it takes to attract the teachers back on board. I know a lot of teachers groups are very interested in Kathleen Wynne, as are a lot of the other public sector. And I think that overall, I think perhaps, the reason why not so many people were eager to jump on board is because the party's in ruins. It's not a lot of fun when it's a big mess.
Well, Mary, think about it this way, though. When we do come to an election, because certainly this government is not going to last an entire term, I can't see the Liberals picking up any seats. I think it's going to be the Conservatives and the NDP picking up the spoils. The problem for me as a Conservative right now is that definitely it's a three-way race. And I don't know if Ontario understands what will happen if we do elect Andrea Horwath as our next leader.
Well,
it will be paradise.
Yes.
All of a sudden, your books will be balanced. You'll have proper social programs. And it will be
but really,
wonderful.
With what's happening, we don't like having a very weak Liberal Party.
Hang on, one at a time.
It's bad for the Conservatives to have a very weak Liberal Party. It is. We want you to be stronger because you take away votes from the NDP. So get going, get cracking.
We are, and we are going.
Do I hear Hudak's worried about Horwath? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
No, it's definitely a three-way race. We're worried about the people of Ontario making the wrong decision.
Just in terms, Ron, last word to you, in terms of, people aren't jumping in because the party's in ruins and so on. Clearly the polls are not favorable right now, but McGuinty's departure may break that fever. This is, after all, a race to be premier. So there should be a lot more interest in being premier, right? I think that's Senator Pupatello calling, Ron. Do you have a comment on that?
It was Santa Claus, actually.
Do you have a comment on that?
I just see the party being totally renewed. It is going to grow from this. We're going to have a new leader of the party, and I think that party is going to refresh this.
Very good. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Well, let's go to the federal level, and this one, Alex, is for you. And it has to do with Prime Minister Harper and his trip, of course, to India. And he's there right now and promoting trade, signing some deals, and looking after economic matters. We're not surprised by that at all. A little bit of a kerfuffle around bringing his armored vehicle there, but so what? He needs protection. But what do you make of it? Is it good for Canada, what he's doing? Is he promoting our best interests?
Well, let's take a look at that in terms of economic responsibilities. That was $500,000 spent on bringing armored vehicles over to India. And I think that while I do think that the RCMP, because he determined it to be a high-risk area, and I do agree with them, why is Harper traveling there then? Why not invite Indian officials over to Canada, or why not meet in a safe third country such as Switzerland or France? I'm sorry, but if it's fiscal measures, or when you have to consider fiscal responsibility in these tough times, then I expect Harper to be doing that.
It was not Stephen Harper's decision. It wasn't his at all. It was the
RCMP.
Sorry,
the buck stops
the
at
RCMP
Harper.
felt that there was a risk, and I don't think that it was possible to meet in a neutral territory like Switzerland. That makes absolutely no sense.
Why not have people over to Canada?
India is a nation of so many people and so much booming industry. We need to have good trade relations with them. And if that meant flying over an armored car so that our Prime Minister could be safe, I don't think Canadians would have a problem with that.
I'm pretty sure that we could have saved, $500,000 by just flying over their officials over to Canada. I think that
you need to meet on
their
their
wait a sec. Hang on a sec. Just to be absolutely clear, are you suggesting that our Prime Minister shouldn't visit India or should ignore advice on security by not bringing the proper vehicles to protect himself?
What I'm suggesting, Larry, is that during these times where a lot of people are having to tighten their belts, he should be fighting more fiscally responsible means of meeting with other officials. And if it's unsafe to travel to India, then he should have had the meetings here in Canada.
Hang on.
Why not have meetings here in Canada? That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm sorry, but flights go two ways. In terms of, I think that it's important for the Prime Minister to engage in trade. That said, we just signed a secretive, trade deal with China in Russia, a third country in Russia. That's where we signed our secret trade deal with China. So I'm not sure why couldn't we have met in Russia again?
It was a photo.
It was definitely an opportunity. Ron, hang on. Ron has not had a chance yet. Go ahead.
This is petty about the cars and this and that. Here we have the Prime Minister of world-class country. I mean, Canada is the world leader in the world. So, and we are going over there to India for jobs creation here, to trade back and forth. We are selling them commodities. They are selling us things. India is huge, and it's becoming a huge powerhouse within itself. They're finally getting their act together. Sure, there's other issues that India is dealing with now, but those are issues that they have to deal with. But we have the Prime Minister is representing all of us. I know Chrétien made many trips abroad trying to promote Canada and trade with other countries. So, we benefit by this. He's not going over there because he wants to drive his Cadillac on the roads of India.
We've only got about a minute left, and I want your opinion on this, Tara, because I agree with Ron. He needs protection, and if he needed an armored car, that's not a problem. However, the Indian Prime Minister, folks, has indicated that has cautioned Mr. Harper to be careful of Sikh extremism in Canada. Harper dismissed that. He seemed to. Is he pandering to? Because there's lots of Sikhs here. Do we have extremists?
You're talking about conservatives pandering?
Yes,
I thought that was usually something the Liberals did.
No, I think Mr. Harper has learned
you know
all
what?
the liberal tricks.
I think that it's very difficult for us because we are a multicultural society. We respect everyone's religions and rights as long as they're abiding the law. Things in India are much more hairy when it comes to those relations than they are in Canada. I think that it was wise that I can understand why he did give that advice to Stephen Harper, and Stephen Harper acted accordingly.
Okay, listen, we're going to have to move. No, we're going to have to move because we're now at the lightning round. And remember, we're going to go through and you have a chance to express an opinion. And the first topic has to do, speak of learning tricks. Mr. Mulcair and the NDP have learned some tricks about negative advertising. I want you to look at this ad, then I'm going to ask you to talk about it. Watch the monitor, please. Production.
Canada's NDP has a new leader, but can we afford him? Thomas Mulcair's $20 billion carbon tax will make everything you need cost more. Groceries, heating, electricity. Experts say Mulcair's carbon tax will raise the price of gas by 10 cents a litre. You name it. Under Mulcair, you'll pay more. Taxes, taxes, and more taxes. We can't afford Mulcair's NDP. We just can't. A message from Canada's Conservatives.
Well, it was the other way around. It was the same old ploy, perhaps, to try to damage Mr. Mulcair. How do you feel about that?
I think that it's a terrible ad. I think that Canadians are sick of hearing our politicians just throw mud at each other. They want to hear solutions, especially right now when we are in we're trying to pull out of tough economic times. We have deficits, we have debt, and to just do this kind of mudslinging, that's not what people are interested in. They want to hear what your government's doing. They want to hear what you're going to do to solve
Tara, defend that.
Well, it's easy to defend. He was just speaking the truth. The carbon tax will be a tax, and we will pay more for everything because of that carbon tax. So it was just like a public service announcement, and it needed to be said. And you'll note that it's interesting that we're talking about Mulcair, and we're not even concerned about the Liberals federally.
Yeah.
Well,
Harper's worried about Mulcair.
All right, hang on, Ron.
I really think that I don't like attack ads, okay? And I agree with you. Get to the solution of the problem. Tell me how you are going to fix it, not how somebody else is going to do it. I want to know solutions, and right down to the brass tacks.
Okay, and the next one, and we're going to start with you on this one, Alex, and it has to do with the Service Ontario kiosk being shut down by the provincial Liberal Party in a number of areas because of some security issues. The opposition parties are saying you're diminishing services to Ontarians. Why are you doing that? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that we've paid, I believe it's $6.8 million to have them installed since I think it was 1996 or 2006. But I think that it's too bad that McGuinty has decided to completely rid of them, because they were important, important feature for many people in terms of accessing services and changing records when they needed to.
Tara.
You know, the government, there's so much red tape when it comes to the government and licensing and address changes and so many things. Busy people liked the kiosks. You could just walk in, get your easy things done. And if there was a security issue, then the Liberals should have tried to fix that issue as opposed to just scrapping the entire program.
And Ron.
Well, you know what? They really weren't being used at all.
What?
They weren't. You know what? I used it once to change an address. They really weren't being used. There weren't that many around. And you know what? You go online and get a lot of that work done. And that's what I did the last time I had to get a new license and update other things. So you know what? And the fraud was really a problem for me, because when you have fraud,
the fraud never actually happened. I know this is the lightning round.
It did happen, and that's why we got rid of it.
We'll stop there. Listen, Ron, your word again, and this has to do with the teacher strife that's happening. You know that many boards are taking strike action, or at least votes on strike action. But the OSSTF has just tabled a plan that would see perhaps a revamped benefits plan to try to save the government money, to try to avoid confrontation. How do you feel about that?
Well, according to the Teachers Federation, they are saying that they could save $419 million a year on bringing the benefits in-house. If that is true, I think the government should look at that and say, look, if this is an area where we could save tax dollars, go for it.
Tara.
I think that this issue has been brought up before, but no one's ever really acted on it. I am encouraging the government to look at anything that we can do to save money, but I'm not fully understanding if these savings are supposed to be in lieu of a wage freeze or not. So I think that we still do need a wage freeze.
A deal can be reached, and I think that's what's important here. The government sat back down with OSSTF, and that's what the teachers' unions were saying all along. There was no need to put that very hard, unnecessary legislation in. They could have just sat down at the table to begin with and done negotiating.
Well, let's hope it augurs some further negotiations. Listen, we're going to drop the welfare issue, and we're going to talk my turn because we're running out of time. And my topic really was on something we've already touched on, which is the approval of recreational use of marijuana in a couple of states, Colorado and Washington, as we've said, for those who are 21 years old and over, even growing marijuana in some cases. But that's what they're doing it in a couple of states. Not new. We are on record. There's a Canadian Senate committee that has made that recommendation to the Canadian government here to decriminalize and support legalization of marijuana. In Hamilton, we have a perennial mayoralty candidate who has always run on that ticket, never won, but he's made it front and center. And in the last federal election, David Christopherson came out in favor of making marijuana legal as well. As a former school principal, I've got to tell you, and I saw the deleterious effects of drug use among families and kids, I'm appalled. But am I just the old guy? Am I behind the times, or better put, is it time to get high? Ron?
Well, You know, I don't have a problem with the decriminalization of marijuana. I think that our police forces are stretched to the max, trying to catch someone smoking a joint and then clogging up the courts with dealing with that. So decriminalizing it, controlling it, government control, same way they do with the
decriminalization and legalization are two different things. Legalization, how do you feel about that?
I may be soft on decriminalization, but definitely not on legalization. We have enough things for our sin taxes, and we don't need something else. We don't need to introduce, pot at an early age to kids.
And in fact,
legally, it makes no sense.
In Canada, the federal government is just making it more stringent. If you're caught, you do jail time in some cases. Well. How do you feel about this?
Well, I think that I certainly understand your concerns surrounding mental health, and I do believe that cannabis is a mental health issue, not a criminal justice issue, when there is issues. But I think that, we allow people to drink in this country, and alcohol causes depression, and it causes alcoholism. There's all kinds of different societal issues related to alcohol, yet we're not banning that. So I think that if we're going to allow alcohol on the books, and we certainly should allow marijuana, it makes no sense to allow one but not the other.
And in fact, one of our viewers did tweet me when I said that I'd be talking about this, and he pointed out the hypocrisy. He said alcohol, in fact, the case can be made, is much more dangerous, much worse societally in terms of its implications.
So why bring in something else that's bad for you?
And that's
just don't inhale. Don't inhale.
My God.
That's all you have to do.
Well, we're gonna leave it at that, at the Bill Clinton line that I tried it, but I didn't inhale. We'll stop there, and we'll thank our panel. And we'll thank our viewers as well for watching The Opinionators. We're all going to be back a week from now, because you know what? A week is a lifetime in politics, and we'll talk about it all. Thanks for watching.
Tara Crugnale's Hair by Ludi Mamoda Hair and Aesthetic Studio, 169 James Street North in downtown Hamilton.